So I like when I see when I'm looking at me when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. See, I won't change my life just fine.
Hello, and welcome to A Seat at the Table. I'm Deneen Milner. Today, we've changed our seats and table just a little bit to accommodate our distinguished guests.
I'm Christine White. 2018 marks 55 years since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his iconic I Have a Dream speech, and 50 years since he was assassinated. From then to now, is the dream still alive?
I'm Monica Pearson, and we have invited two of Dr. King's children to join this discussion. But before we bring them out, we're going to share our perspectives.
In the PBS documentary Black in America Since MLK and Still I Rise, Dr. Henry Louis Gates describes the strength and resilience of Dr. King.
A weaker man might have given up, but not Martin Luther King. He pushed on, harder than ever. The violence and poverty he'd seen in Chicago reinforced his belief that integration alone wasn't enough.
Now we are in a new phase, and that is a phase where we are seeking genuine equality, where we are dealing with hard economic and social issues. And it means that the job is much more difficult. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income.
And what was it like growing up during those times in 1968? I was already a working woman, but it was after Dr. King was assassinated. I can remember the Ford Foundation and Columbia University starting a program for minority groups because there were not enough African-American reporters to go into riot-torn areas. Because when white reporters went in, the black people in Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, in Chicago would not talk to them after Dr. King was assassinated. So they looked around their newsrooms and said, we need more people of color. So in 1968, the summer of 1968, the Ford Foundation and Columbia University started a program for minority students. And I actually went in the second phase, which was for newspaper. The first phase was for television in 1968 because it was very obvious. You could see somebody was black.
Right.
But his assassination really caused a huge change in the media business.
That's amazing.
It must have been a wake-up call. I mean, I think that the most visible person to stand up for the rights of African Americans in America being assassinated caused an incredible amount of anger and an incredible amount of discontent among black people because it looked like, it appears that we were on the right track. And then he's shot down. And I think that we don't get enough in the schools, enough conversation about what the real lived experiences were of those people at that time, what that anger was all about. We hear about King's speech, we hear about him almost just like he was a motivational speaker, but he was far more than that. And his ideals and his ideas and his teachings have done so much to help push forward and change the minds of the people who were the actual oppressors. And so what it must have done for black people to see that that the dream destroyed, and for the people who were hoping for a greater future for African Americans, what it must have felt like for him to be assassinated.
When the dreamer was destroyed.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny that you bring up the way that children look at it. I'm passionate about making sure that children do look at him and all that he did.
Right.
I actually helped Christine King Ferris, his sister, write a book called March On.
Right.
And I actually had to go and do a lot of research that went into the book covers what happened leading up to the day that he gave the speech. What did he wear? What was his favorite Bible verse?
Right.
You know, how did he feel? Was he nervous? And it brought the humanity to this man who he's an icon to the world. It's not just us here in America. It's not just black people. He's an icon to the world. But I always think that it's important that we look at him as a human being. He was a human being.
Right.
And, you know, he had, you know, blood and sinew and thought and love and passion. And I just, you know, I think that it's beautiful that we can talk about him in that way, too.
You know, when we had Zernona Clayton on our show, and she talked about her relationship with Dr. King. At another function, at a women's history function, she told a story about Martin and his brother Dexter, that before Dr. King left for Memphis, she was driving him to the airport, and that both boys tried to keep him from leaving that day. They did not want him to leave. And when Zernona told that story, we all were just kind of mesmerized by it, because at that time, his sons must have felt something. She said they even ran to the car and tried to keep him from getting in the car. And as they drove away, Zernona said the boys were standing there crying.
Oh my gosh, my gosh.
Well, we have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll be joined by two of Dr. King's children, Mr. Martin Luther King III and Dr. Bernice King. You don't want to miss it.
The prophet King spoke the vision. He made it plain, and we must run with it in this generation. His prophetic vision and magnificent dream described the yearning of people all over the world.
And I am so thankful for the opportunity to really thank America for helping to realize the dream, although I must say it is not yet realized. And so we must redouble and quadruple our efforts.
Welcome back to A Seat at the Table. I am truly excited because we're now joined by Dr. King's oldest son and youngest daughter, Mr. Martin Luther King III, a global human rights activist and humanitarian, and then Dr. Bernice King, who is a minister, CEO of the King Center, and a civil rights activist. Thank you both for being here today to discuss your father's dream. What do you think your dad's dream is today?
I would say that that vision was a vision of freedom and justice and equality for all humankind. And clearly, we are nowhere near where we should be as a society, although we've made strides.
For me, it's like a kingdom of God vision. I don't think we'll arrive at where he casted the vision, but I think we will continue to work at it. My mother said it best. She said, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And I think the reality is that every generation has to make their contribution to the freedom struggle. Daddy and them made their contribution. They really helped to give more strength to the First Amendment right of protest and free speech. You know, I say to people today, when young people always say, well, we're back to where we were and it's worse, and I'm saying, trust me, back then it was much more difficult to protest. It was much more difficult to have the freedom of speech as an African American especially. And so thank God that they stood with that strength and that freedom.
Well, we are 50 years from the assassination of Dr. King, but I think about his last speeches, pushing forth a campaign for poor people, the Poor People's Campaign, and pushing for a Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights, seeking economic equality.
Particularly when you come to equal pay and equal work, because if you look at in the city of Atlanta, a family of 4 making $24,000 a year, and that's 26% of Atlanta's population, they're living under the poverty line. So what do we do?
I mean, I think about going over to Edgewood, where your mother and your father are, and where your father was born and raised. And there are places in that area that I can't afford. I can't afford to live there. And a lot of African Americans can't afford to live there. The gentrification has made it impossible. And this was one of those issues that he was pressing before he passed.
Well, let me say that I think, first of all, in 1968, he was talking about something that we have not achieved thus far, which is a living wage.
Yes.
To address it today, in today's time, it really does have to do with creating an economy, a different kind of economy. And quite frankly, you know, Dad wasn't killed because he was talking about having folks ride in the front of a bus. He was killed because he talked about the economic issues, that there had to be a radical redistribution of wealth in our nation if we were going to create options and opportunities for all. Obviously, that has not happened. So one of the things we have to look at is, how do we retool resources? So if we just look at the African American community, Last year, black folks spent $1 trillion
Right.
collectively.
Right.
Yet, when you look at African American banks, none of them have $1 billion.
Right.
That's right.
When you look at construction companies, they do very well, some of them, architectural firms. So I guess what I'm saying is we've got to figure out how do we build our community so that it can become stronger, so that we can also work to build a better nation and world. But it's part of it is entrepreneurship. I mean, we've got to encourage our young people to go out and create, not just to go out and want to work for someone. Right. The more entrepreneurs we create, the better society we will have. Technology is the order of the day, and we got to do more than just tweet and
right.
you know, use Facebook and those modalities. We go far beyond that.
I think there's going to have to be a lot of collaboration and coming together to formulate an agenda. We're in a season now that we've got to start thinking about what I call corporate responsibility. What is the role and responsibility of corporate America in helping in this? You know, some corporations have taken the liberty, you know, of saying that, you know, our minimum wage is going to start here, which helps to increase the income. And so I think that's another thing that we have to look at as well.
How do we go about holding corporations accountable when they have we're in a moment politically where they're getting more rights, you know, financially in terms of taxes and things of that nature. How does the normal, everyday, average citizen hold a corporation accountable?
Well, one of the ways we do that, just one, is we have to look at exercising our buying power. I mean, that was what was done in the 60s. I'm not advocating boycotting per se, but that may be something that needs to be put on the table.
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, you know, if communities of color stop buying Nikes, just for 1 week.
Yeah.
For 1 week.
Nike will come and resolve every issue we have.
Right. Right.
Okay? I mean, I don't mean that they should, but I mean, they would certainly work diligently. So it's really looking at where we spend our money. I mean, there are vast amounts of that $1 trillion that we spent that go to corporations that don't have any social responsibility. They don't feel like they have a social responsibility and obligation. The question is, how do you organize that? That's the biggest challenge. Right. How do you organize it and how do you sustain it? Right. And, you know, I've always hoped that there would be a tipping point, that something would happen, and all of a sudden these issues would be addressed, but it's not going to happen. We have to hold their feet to the fire, and we've got to figure out a strategy. I don't know specifically what that is this moment, but I know there has to be a strategy, and that's one.
And I think it's important in that organizational effort that the church play an important role. I mean, the masses of our people, regardless of the fall away and the disconnection of this current generation, the masses still are connected into the church community in some form or fashion. Every weekend is the largest gathering of African Americans across the nation. Right. The critical thing that we keep missing is that we have to organize and we have to have a strategy. Daddy and them had a strategy. I mean, when he was in Montgomery dealing with the bus protests, there was still voter disenfranchisement, and they were registering people to vote. But they had their attention focused at that time specifically on the issue of bus desegregation. And we have a difficult time focusing with everything that's going on. We can't tackle everything at one time.
Right.
But then you bring up a question for me. You mentioned leadership and focus. Your dad was the leader. We don't have that charismatic leader. So I guess the question is there an opportunity? Or do we need someone like a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in this generation, a charismatic leader?
My view is we can't wait on another leader to be developed. We all have to find out what our calling is and do something. And I think, you know, there may be another charismatic leader right now in the first or second grade. Right. But we can't wait on him or her. We have to be doing something and engaged on a consistent basis. One of the things that Dad and his team did was they had a strategic plan. You know, after the Montgomery bus boycott, when the Birmingham campaign came around, it was several years before they worked, and they also were working to develop public policy. So you got a Civil Rights Act in '64 after Birmingham. You got a Voting Rights Act after Selma. You got fair housing legislation in 1968, a couple of months after Dad was killed. So they understood it wasn't just protesting and demonstrating. Today, the question I would raise is, after confrontation, then what? And that's what we have to answer, because we've seen huge demonstrations. Thank goodness Black Lives Matter, they're doing outstanding work all over the country. But yet we still see these killings that happen with police on a consistent basis. So after confrontation, what is the next step? Do we need new policy, or do we need to find ways to bolster the older policy?
And I want to just mention, because in my mother's recent memoir, My Life, My Love, My Legacy, she talked about something she learned from her work on the Humphrey Hawkins full employment legislation. And that is that we get to a place where we pass the legislation, but then there's nothing in place to ensure there's some sort of proper rollout and accountability. And she used that to help her with the King holiday. If you remember, when the King holiday was signed into law, about a year later, she went back and asked, would they establish a holiday commission so that we would be able to organize the holiday. So there's a next step after policy passes that we keep missing in the process.
We have all learned from Dr. King's legacy and respect his work, but does it still resonate with the current generation?
I think ultimately what we find, especially among millennial activists, is that there is sort of both an embrace and at the same time a distance from King, which is to say that they're inspired by some of his more radical writings, the letter from the Birmingham jail, some of the things he wrote and said, for example, about labor, about the Vietnam War and imperialism. But at the same time, I think there is a resistance to the way that King has been sanitized in the mainstream. Is this idea that King, loved everybody, and there was a right way to protest, and he was the right kind of leader. And often that is levied as sort of a charge that, young people, they don't have leadership like that.
One of the things that you said that was really powerful, I think, was that we can't wait on a charismatic leader. And one of the things that Black Lives Matter has done intentionally is not lift a charismatic leader to the forefront, partially because, you cut off the head and you kill the whole organization, but also because they have to be able to move nimbly and move in different places and in different spaces and around different issues. But what I think we see in some of the weakness of that activism is the concerted, unified effort. And so we lose that unification that a lot of the publicized speeches brought us.
Everything is about building bridges. I want to go back to an earlier comment, because I think what the sister stated, Dr. King was sanitized. What people don't realize is that the last 3 years of his life, he was hated. I mean, literally, by the power structure. Why? Because he came out and attacked. No, he didn't really attack. He told the truth about the Vietnam War and its destruction that it was doing to humankind. And so that was one of the issues. And then he talked about this radical redistribution of wealth. So I guess today, what the first thing is, we need to have more dialogue. We need to realize that there's strength in everyone has something to say. I mean, sometimes young folk don't want to talk to older folks, and that's not good. We need to have consistent dialogue as to how we're going to address this. The other thing I'd say is, we need a new think tank. We don't have enough think tanks. We have a lot in this country, but we don't have, the progressive think tanks are not joined together. And there should be a think tank around issues that impact African Americans and poor people.
Right.
And I think that the think tank, where you bring the best and brightest minds together so that they can help come up with new solutions as to how do we resolve these issues. We need to create that right now.
That's brilliant.
And let's not be mistaken, because this is not new. Back in our father's day, you deal with Stokely Carmichael. And a lot of the young people then, the Black Power movement, they kind of felt he was a little sanitized himself, that he wasn't strong enough on some things. So it's nothing new. I think the beauty of his leadership, which Daddy showed up, I mean, he wasn't distant from them.
Right.
He wasn't afraid to sit down and hear, you know, their heart, their challenges, their issues. So he wasn't like attacking them. He was one of the greatest, right, listeners that you could ever meet. He could hear every form of criticism and still speak to what people were sharing out of a spirit of love and elevate the conversation and still seek to try to work with those individuals. And so we need more people, as Martin said, connecting the dots with the generations. This generation that is very energized is not going to make the impact alone.
Yeah.
It's gonna be every one of us.
Right. Well, it sounds like we need to have better unification. We need to have take away some of these egos of the desire to be in the front and play your position. And it sounds like we just need to have dialogue across generations and education across generations. All we know is that you go out and march. That's what we hear. You're supposed to go out and march.
That's what you saw.
And that's what you saw.
That's
and that's the problem with the way that we have been taught about the civil rights movement and the way that we've been taught about Dr. King. We haven't been taught in our schools. We're not taught his philosophy. We're taught the speech. And the speech is not necessarily the philosophy or the ideals or the discipline.
Right.
And even the story of how you get from having dozens of organizers all over the country, all organizing in unison. And we don't learn about that.
And that's why she founded the King Center. That was one of her main reasons. She wanted to make sure that future generations understood what really happened behind all of the marching and the demonstrations, that there was, you know, strategizing and planning, there was education and training. But we have to do a better job of really disseminating this more and making the connections and really educating and training people. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because when you see something wrong, you want it right immediately.
Right.
Because you feel it's inexcusable. We've been living here too long. Why do we have to put up with this anymore? But, you know, at the end of the day, change doesn't come overnight. People don't change overnight. They develop these attitudes and perspectives through a culture. And I think the most powerful thing that I ever heard our father say, men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they're not communicating with each other. They're not communicating with each other because they're not connected to each other. If you've never seen and experienced love, you're going to hate and you're going to perpetuate it. That's just real.
And it's programmed through
the
our
system.
main traditional systems, our media, our everything.
I have to tell you that I'm sitting here and I am tingling, not just because of the way that the two of you are talking about your father's legacy and how we move forward, but because I sit and I'm listening to you say, Daddy. And that makes my heart beat fast, because I lost my mom 15 years ago. I don't have to live through her death every year, like you two have to live through your father's death. You have to live through people saying things that aren't correct or mischaracterizing who he was and what he spoke about. And so I'm deeply honored to sit here with you today and to hear you refer to your father as a human being, someone who meant something to you beyond what he meant to us. That's really special.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that today.
Thank you.
I also want to mention the work that Mrs. King did to make sure that we had a King holiday, to make sure that we have a King Center, and that we shouldn't take it lightly. And so I appreciate you guys for coming. I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation.
Well, all I have to say to both of you, I have watched you grow into the young people your parents are so proud of. Because both of you have made so many contributions, not just in the city of Atlanta, but worldwide. And you both are creating that beloved community that your parents hoped that their children would live in, and that now your daughter, your niece, is growing into. And to me, the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is always alive as long as one of you is here.
Yeah.
And I cannot thank you both enough for turning out to be the young people he would be proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your mom was extremely proud of all of y'all.
Well, we have to go, but the conversation doesn't end here.
Share your thoughts with us on social media.
And we're on Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at ASATTTV.
Thanks for joining us for a seat at the table. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.